I'm going to stand down here if that's okay, because it's a little bit less kind of intimidating than being up there. So my name's Jonathan. I haven't been doing this quite as long as my dad has, so I asked you to be a little bit gracious with me here. But what I wanted to talk about today is justice and how I think we define justice and what I think God says about justice and how that maybe impacts our life, maybe in sometimes ways more than we think. So you can go ahead and the way I kind of want to frame this is telling you a little bit of a story. So in 2008, while I was living down in California, I had a chance to go with a group from my church at the time to Uganda, which is a country in Central Africa. And to give you a little bit of context as to where that is, there's a, does that work? Let's see if this works.
I haven't been doing this as long as.
Ah, there we go. So this red line here is the equator. And we went to a town called Lira, which is about 3 degrees above the equator. So basically it's hot there year-round. It's just a matter of whether it's raining or not. Is kind of the 2 seasons you get. So this is not high on my list of travel kind of destinations that I've been to, but it's a pretty impactful place in my life. So we went there to, maybe, there we go. We went there and spent 10 days at an orphanage where we built a house. The way this place was organized was it was kind of pods of homes of 8 kids and a house mom. And so we went there and built a new house as they were kind of adding on more capacity. And we spent every day having lunch with the kids and their house mom, and we just kind of chat over lunch. And one day while we were having lunch, one of the house moms made a statement that it's kind of this moment that kind of changed the course of the rest of my life. And she said these 8 words: "You are so lucky to be an American." And she wasn't saying this in kind of like an accusation or to try and guilt me into anything. I think she was just making an observation that the simple fact of my being American meant that I was going to have opportunities in my life that the kids there were never going to have. But at the same time, it really stuck with me and really kind of got me thinking. And it's kind of, when she said it, I immediately wanted to say something like, oh, well, I have to deal with traffic and my job is really boring, so, my life isn't all that great. And, or I wanted to kind of turn around and be like, well, look, the weather here is great, the kids play soccer every day, it's kind of, they have a good life too, but at the same time, that's they're orphans. They're there because their parents are dead. And so to try to somehow say like, oh, you have nice weather, that's not really a fair kind of comparison to that. So I don't even remember what I said. I kind of mumbled something and kind of went back to my beans because I kind of wasn't sure what to say. But as I came back to the U.S., what was really kind of going through my head was this question of, so what's next? So this is kind of is in my head and in my ear now. So what is God really asking kind of me? And kind of that ended up being moving back up here and going back to grad school. And we spent a lot of time thinking about this question of what is justice? What does it mean to do justice? And doing a lot of reading and thinking about it. And the kind of definition that I want to start with is what I think we usually think of when we talk about justice, and that's that justice is a concept of moral rightness based on ethics, rationality, law, natural law, religion, fairness, or equity, along with the punishment of the breach of said ethics. This is from Wikipedia, which is kind of my favorite go-to source. So I wouldn't have made it through grad school without Wikipedia. But I think this is how we often think of justice, is in some kind of legal terms. We usually think of courts and laws, and if somebody's broken a law, they've been brought, they're being brought to justice now. But I don't think that that's necessarily what we're all. I think there's a problem with that definition, and it's that people aren't part of that. They're nowhere represented in that definition. It's all about laws and rules. And so kind of in the course of grad school, one of my classes, we read a book by an author named Daniel Grudy, and he offered a little bit of an alternative definition of justice that I think gets more at what God is calling us to. And he says that God's justice is not principally about vengeance or retribution, but about restoring people to right relationship with God, themselves, others, and the environment. And I think all of the ethics and morality of laws and kind of the legal definition of justice is still there, but I think what he brings back is the people and the spirituality to justice that we sometimes lose. And kind of to illustrate this point, I want to talk a little bit about the parable of the prodigal son, because I think it's actually got a lot more to do with justice than we generally kind of think of. And this is the kind of part of the story that I think we talk about the most, which is the young son coming back home, falling on his knees and begging for forgiveness from his father, and the father kind of rushing out with open arms and unconditional love, welcoming his son back home. And I think that this is kind of the part of the story that we dwell on. But there's another part to that story, and that's the older brother. And I think his part of the story tells us a lot about I think in a lot of ways what this parable is really about. And his kind of perspective on things is that he looks at his younger brother and says, kind of, here's this foolish young man who's run off and he's made bad on our family name, and he's squandered our family's money, and essentially kind of in asking for his inheritance early, he was kind of telling his dad, I wish you were dead, And so for the older brother, he's kind of, when he sees his younger brother return home, he wants justice. He wants the younger brother to face the consequences of his actions, and he wants him punished. But the father comes out to the older brother and offers kind of a different, and kind of turns things on its head when he says that we had to celebrate and be glad because this brother of yours was dead and is alive again. He was lost and is found. And what the father is really talking about is that justice in this story has to do with the restoration of the son to the family and this chance for reconciliation between the son and the community. It's not about punishing the younger son for the wrong that he's done. It's about the fact that he was not part of our community, but now he's back again, and we have this chance for reconciliation. And I think it's only when we kind of look at that whole picture that we really kind of see kind of what's going on here. So, what does God's justice look like for the children of Otinawa, which is the orphanage that we were at? I think coming back, some of my first thoughts were, that it would be really easy. Otinawa has a child sponsorship program, and it kind of would have been really easy to say, like, okay, well, I'm going to sign up for that, and my $20 a month, I'm going to start doing justice, and that'll be the thing that I do, and I'll be good to go. But I don't think that that's necessarily all that God is asking of us. Because I think that when we think of justice in strictly economic and kind of legal terms, again, we kind of are robbing, for me, it was these kids from Otinawa, we're kind of robbing them of their humanity and making them just into this economic thing. And the reality is that they're, a lot more than that they're kind of, I'm in the background there, they loved grabbing my camera and going off and taking photos, and kind of they're wonderful kind of kids that just they're people. They're not just an economic need. So this is where it kind of starts to get a little bit more difficult. Sorry. Because I think that a lot of times we can obsess over the economic and political aspects of justice, and it, as a result, kind of makes us spiritually poor. We tend to get caught up on making sure that we're donating enough, or giving enough time, and not necessarily always looking at what is it that we're really called to as Christians. Because I think that God doesn't need your money, and he doesn't need your vote. What he's really asking us for is your life. And that's the really hard part. I spent a lot of time kind of this last week talking to my dad about what is the ask that I'm going to kind of leave you with? And one of the hard parts is that it looks different for everybody. I don't want to give you the impression that if you're doing child sponsorship or something like that it's not good. Those things are wonderful. There's many organizations that do wonderful things through child sponsorship or volunteer time and all those kinds of things. But really, I want to kind of leave you with, Kurt mentioned the kind of the Micah 6:8 verse of that what does God call us to? And it's to love justice, seek justice, love mercy, and walk humbly with your God. And so kind of what I want to leave you with is this, that take a look, not just introspectively inside of your life, but look at the world around you, and look for the kind of the small ways in your life that you have a chance to do justice. And that could be anything from, at Christmas or birthdays, doing homemade gifts for each other and your family. It could be doing child sponsorship. It could be doing volunteer time. It could be, inviting neighbors over for a dinner. It could be, I think part of my hope is that as a result of this, kind of your definition of justice would be expanded to look and see how it's more than just what we do with our money, or more than just what we do with kind of our, 5 volunteer hours a month or something like that, that it's really a way of living. Yeah, thank you.